I go back about 30 years with Soras, and back to 1987 when I first became interested in catching them after I read a book called The Marsh Hen. The whole idea, even since the time I was a kid, of studying something that nobody else had ever really done or done to the level we're doing it, really intrigued me, and that's what has spurred me on. And it's fascinating to see them, a bird that most people never get to see. Everyone's heard the saying, skinny as a rail. It's a old saying. People think of it as a railing or a post like this that somebody's thin as. But when you say thin as a rail or skinny as a rail, it's because years ago, probably 100, 200 years ago, somebody saw a rail, the bird, squeeze through the marsh grass, and they're able to laterally compress their body. Their rib cage is highly flexible, and they can go through these vertical stems of the marsh. So that's how the saying came about. The Sora Rail is one of a group of 9 different species of secretive marsh birds that occurs in North America. It's the most abundant, but it's also the most wide-ranging of any of the species. It has migrations sometimes of over 3,000 miles. Scientific name is Porzana carolina. Jug Bay marshes here are one of the highest concentration areas for them on the east coast of the U.S., and it's mainly because of the large wild rice marshes that occur here. Every fall, they return here from the northern marshes, mostly in Canada, during a migration after they bred there, and stop here to refuel themselves for a long-distance migration, some of them traveling maybe another 1,000 to 2,000 miles from here south. We tag these birds because they're so difficult to study. Their nature is extremely secretive. As a group, they're one of the most difficult to study birds. So whenever you can get the opportunity to catch them, you want to put a small USGS leg band on them in case they're ever found. So that's why you mainly banding, is to track them. About 20 years ago, we did this study in cooperation with the USGS back in the 90s. We were trying to help pioneer some new methods to track them using radio transmitters, using radio telemetry. So we got these small 1.6 gram transmitters, and we came up with a method to attach them to the bird's body, and we were able to actually track them all the way down as far as Florida during the night. They only migrate at night. They don't fly during the day. And they're all during the day. They stay in the marsh, hiding in the cattails. And they have very long legs and toes, which allow them to walk through the vegetation and through the deep mud. But at night when they fly, otherwise you would never know what happened to them. So with these transmitters, we were able to follow them for hundreds of miles over one night. Some of them traveled as much as 600 miles that we documented in one evening. So they used the northwest winds from a cold front to come in and leave on that extra tailwind. So a bird that can maybe fly 30 to 35 miles an hour can achieve speeds of maybe 50 to even 60 miles an hour if the winds are strong enough. So you can imagine in 10 hours of darkness, the bird could cover 600 miles. One of the key features about Jug Bay, and why we are called a National Estuarine Research Reserve under NOAA, National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, is because we have the largest wild rice marshes in the state of Maryland. Now, what's the value of wild rice? Wild rice is one of the most productive food plants in the marsh for seed-eating birds, including waterfowl. The Sora happens to feed on the rice during the fall. It's a high carbohydrate seed source. So anybody, as you know, if you eat high carbohydrates, you're going to gain weight. So that's why the Soras are here. They're here to gain weight, and the high carbohydrate wild rice puts on these lipids in their body and allows them to travel great distances, some of them thousands of miles, on just what they put on during this short period of time that they stay here at Jug Bay, which probably is around 4 to 6 weeks on average. The last 2 years, we received a private organization grant from the Cove Point Natural Heritage Trust. I wasn't planning on doing this project again after 20 years had gone by and the wild rice had declined over 90% back in the late 90s. But for the last 18 years, I had spent on restoring the wild rice marsh here, which is the key food. If you don't have the rice, you're not going to have the rails or other waterfowl species that depend on it. So now it's come full circle. 20 years later, I'm back to this because of the offer of grant money to do it. I thought it would be a great idea. It was suggested to me originally by Dave Brinker from Maryland DNR that it would really help put Jug Bay on the map by having these MODIS tracking towers through Bird Studies Canada, and they're installing them all over the country, that they would allow us to use automated tracking in a way that using new technology that wasn't available 20 years ago to further increase our knowledge of the bird's migration, which is very little known even to this day. So that's really what spurred me on to continue this work and start again and look at new avenues and using this new technology and little transmitters. And the assistants, their daily job is to check the special traps that we designed to capture them, turn on the sound systems that attract the birds into them. That's the bait, it's the voice of the birds. They come to their own vocalizations, and their job is to do that. And they're learning too on the job. They're getting hands-on experience, learning how to bird band, learning how to do telemetry tracking, learning how to take blood samples for DNA work we're doing with trying to develop a way to look at the sex of the bird. So they're getting hands-on with this, not only great experience, but helping out with the park and teaching the public about what we do it and why we do it and what's the value of studying species like this. And a famous naturalist once said that birds are the litmus paper of the environment. They are environmental test indicators of the quality of it, and Jug Bay is really one of the highest quality habitats we have in the state. It's an important bird area under Maryland and the Audubon Society, and it's over 300 species that occur here. The Sora is just one of them, but it is an important species because without wetlands, it can't exist. And that's why it helps us tell the condition of these wetlands by studying these species.